Hello,
Hello.
everyone. Whoops. Let me see. Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Global Astronomy Month, the continuing celebration festivities that's month long, put on by Astronomers Without Borders. I'm your host, Andrew Fazakis. I'm the communications manager here at AWB. I love to see all my friends around the world joining us. Please put in the comments where you are watching our live broadcast today. It'd be wonderful to see where all our friends are from around the world. And today we are having, of course, this continuation of all the programming that we have for Global Astronomy Month. This is the 15th year that AWB is putting on this special festival. It's the world's largest celebration of the night sky and astronomy and humanity's connection to the night sky. A whole month long of programming that talks about things like global connections, ethnoculture, accessibility, inclusivity, regarding astronomy. And, astronomy is considered a gateway science by educators around the world. It inspires youngsters, and it really talks about our connection with the astronomy, connection with the universe of nature as a whole. So here at Astronomers, we believe, of course, our motto is one people, one sky. And, when it comes to that, probably one of the most impressive things, I have to say, is an eclipse. And we here in North America, I'm in Canada. I'm actually located in Montreal, Canada. Very fortunate. I was in the path of totality, of being able to see the solar eclipse at its most magnificent phase, the totality phase, seeing the entire disk of the sun disappear behind the moon. It's just a breathtaking event. And I'm hoping to hear from folks. We want to hear from folks that were in under the eclipse path. Maybe not the totality, maybe the partial. Maybe you traveled from far away. We'd love to hear your stories. Put it in the comment section. We'll try to share your stories on air today. And really, it's all about the eclipse today. We haven't really talked about it yet on our lives, and we're really excited because one of the most impressive things about the eclipse is how it can inspire people, get people excited to look at the sky, maybe perhaps get into astronomy. It's a great entry point of beginning an exploration of the heavens because, of course, a solar eclipse is one of the most magnificent, awe-inspiring type of events, and it can even change a person's life. It's such a profound thing. And having seen two total eclipses, lucky enough for me, I know that it's been something for myself and my family as well. And so we'd love to hear your stories too. So do share that. But solar eclipses, it's something that has not only inspired the general public, but also entities that are in the trade of doing outreach for in astronomy, of introducing people to the wonders of astronomy. And one of those organizations is the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. And a fantastic organization based in North America, in the United States. And they ran a very interesting project called the Eclipse Ambassador Project for the April 8th eclipse this month. And this is a NASA-funded project that was initiated to leverage two solar eclipses. And we have to remember there was another solar eclipse back in 2017 that really, I think, got a lot of people excited, and they knew what was going to happen in 2024. So this project at ASP involved both of these eclipses. And they both of these eclipses crisscross the United States, right? To basically, expose so many millions of people that to what an eclipse is. And so this program, this Eclipse Ambassador Project, was there to raise awareness of these two exciting events, prepare, engage, inspire local communities in the wonders and the awe of inspiringness of the eclipses, both of these in 2017 and 2024. Now, what's really cool is that the program actually attracted over 700 undergraduates and eclipse enthusiasts. So when we're talking about eclipse enthusiasts, we're talking about graduate students, librarians, teachers, amateur astronomers, folks like that. And they were spanning over 47 different states across the United States, plus the territories of, get this, Guam, Puerto Rico, and of course, the District of Columbia, DC. So the preliminary estimates that are coming back, we're only 2 weeks out from the April eclipse, but already the initial numbers are incredible. We're talking about over 186,000 people that were reached by this Eclipse Ambassador Program. And that it was within also over 1,162 in-person events. So those are like parties, eclipse parties. We saw those play out, and even if you weren't in the path or if you didn't go, you couldn't turn on the news without seeing reports of these amazing eclipse events where masses of people were attending. So today we're really excited because we have a special guest speaker who is directly involved in this program. He's going to be sharing some of this amazing, aspects of this amazing successful program. And it's Shanil Virani is our guest today. He is an astronomy educator, bar none. He's a very passionate science educator. This guy does stuff everywhere. He's all over the place. He's an award-winning astronomer. He's a creator host of Our Island Universe, a co-author of Daughter of the Stars, basically a beautiful coffee table astrophotography photo book. You got to check that out. It's all about light pollution and how we and what basically we lose as humanity when we lose the night, the access to night. So it's something so timely. So do check that out. He's done graduate work at Yale University, studied supermassive black holes. How cool is that? At the center of galaxies in the distant universe. And he's a passionate educator. He was appointed a solar system ambassador by NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Solar system ambassadors communicate basically the excitement of JPL's space exploration missions. And he is a passionate educator and communicator of science galore. What more could you ask for? So Shanil, I want to welcome Shanil onto our show today. Let's see if we can get Shanil in. Hey, Shanil.
Hi, Andrew. How are you?
Whew, good. You're a busy man.
Apparently, that was a wonderful introduction. I really appreciate it. I'm delighted to be here. Astronomers Without Borders is an organization I followed all through my career. And of course, that's such an important mission. So I'm honored to be a guest on your program.
Well, it's just great to be here, and to get some insider information about this wonderful program that it's so timely to talk about it now because there's still so much buzz, isn't there, about the eclipse? I still turn on the news and there's still reports about it.
So that is the remarkable thing about eclipses. As you mentioned, there were these two eclipses, and it really was the annular in 2023 on October. So those were the two events we were trying to leverage. And it started with the 2017, you're right. And part of that was witnessing and observing that, unfortunately, there were many schools that shuttered, right, that didn't facilitate or enable or allow their students to participate in these wondrous moments. And so we thought, well, how could we change that narrative? What can we do as an organization, as an entity where science literacy, science education, like AWB, is critical to what we do? And so we said, well, if we had a project where we could leverage the two eclipses, one in 2023 and then the totality in 2024, to engage at a grassroots level, right, in communities, and have these discussions, then maybe that would be a way to move forward. So we embarked on this project 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago. It's all fuzzy. We're still on a high from April 8th, of course. But yeah, we started off on this project, and I thought we had very ambitious goals. We thought if we could get 500 partners, and so as you mentioned, with the Eclipse Ambassador Project, it's not a solo project. It partners undergraduates with Eclipse enthusiasts, and as you rightfully defined, that's broadly defined. And the idea is of course, we live busy lives, and this was a daunting task that we were asking of folks. And so we thought, well, this is a great way to kind of leverage the burden and the time commitment. Undergraduates have busy lives with classes. Some have to work, of course, and then they have their own social commitments. But this was an opportunity to partner with a librarian, a teacher, a grad student, an amateur astronomer, to go into their community. So we said, if we can get 500 of these pairs, and if we can reach 100,000, that would be success. And
these places, it's really interesting because if you think about librarians and such, amateur astronomers, they really do have really good access to the public, right? Local communities. It's a great entry point.
That's exactly it. Yeah, and so oftentimes, they're it's kind of like playing the middleman, right? They've got the access to the telescopes, they have the passion and excitement that want to share what they know with their communities, and oftentimes it's just trying to find the avenue or where to channel and how to do that. So, uh, as part of this program, it wasn't just recruiting; it was also a strong and strenuous training part of it. And so, as part of that training, it was how to have it was best practices and how to have discussions around inclusive science, other ways of knowing, how to reach people where they are in terms of their science understanding and awareness of these fantastic cosmic events. And the other part of it is that oftentimes in informal science education, which is what planetarium science centers, museums often are, these are events held at their observatory or on campus or at a museum. And we know that restricts access. We know that puts up barriers as to who can attend, who can afford to attend, who can get there. And so we also wanted to use this as a way to reach underserved and underrepresented groups. And instead of them coming to us going to them. And so these 1,100 events, most of it weren't on April 8th. In fact, most of them were in the year leading up to April 8th. They held events at community centers. They went on indigenous lands if that was in their state. They went into churches and synagogues and mosques and had presentations and conversations. And so that to me is the real delight. And the other kind of serendipitous aspect of it is when you're talking about undergrads and eclipse enthusiasts, there's an age discrepancy, right? You're talking about maybe a 20-year-old for the most part, and someone that maybe is close to retirement if you're on that towards the end of that age scale. And so there's also a kind of this intergenerational conversation that was happening, and the discussions about how to talk to one another. That we got a lot of anecdotes back from our pairs, and that was just wonderful to see. Oftentimes it just wasn't an age difference. There were different faiths that were partnered, different people, different ethnicities, and just to see people working together to use this eclipse as a mechanism, as a means to have this broader conversation and how we can work together. I just thought it was a fantastic model.
It's
Um,
really amazing, Shanil, because as you're speaking about this and you're explaining these wonderful aspects of how basically you're building community using
mm,
astronomy and you're
mm,
breaking down borders. Now where have I heard
yeah,
that one? Those before. That speaks so much to us at AWB, right? Astronomers Without Borders. This is what we're at. It's like really utilizing the power of astronomy, right? In really building bridges and building community. And I think an eclipse is just an amazing way, because it's just it's so widespread, right? The eclipse visibility is so bright. And I think the fact that the media, main media, picked this story
yeah,
up and just ran with it for months,
right.
building up the anticipation. It kind of opens the door for educators of really having the access to the masses, and they're excited to come and learn, right?
There are so many important points you touched on. When was the last time you saw in the popular media large spread, many many places talking about science? Very rarely,
Yeah,
very
and it's
rarely.
usually like professional, like maybe a NASA mission, some kind of major professional discovery, right? And
Right,
that's what gets mainstream media really into
right.
astronomy, but it's fleeting, right?
It's fleeting, and there's no way to channel that excitement and enthusiasm afterwards, right? And you're right. We saw that with the Curiosity landing, of course, and then the Perseverance landing, and these are very exciting because these are challenging engineering tasks to do. Right, to land an SUV on the fourth rock from the sun is not easy, and they're using very imaginative ways to do it. And you're right; those capture the international attention, not just the national, but the international attention too. And but I think what makes the solar eclipse particularly unique is that we know that every culture that has looked up, and we have to remind ourselves it's only relatively recently, the last few millennia, I think, that we've lived inside, sheltered from the natural world, have had gadgets of one flavor or another to entertain us. But for most of our 250,000 year species history, right, we were outside. We lived outside, in tune with the cosmos and the night sky. That dark, starry night sky, and on a moonless night, the Milky Way is bright enough to cast shadows. That was the source of our inspiration, and was the source also of our art, our storytelling, our philosophy, our theology, and of course, then our science. And so every culture had these ways that they had to develop to explain what they saw. A lot of them, of course, migrated towards maybe fear and terror because the sun is gone for a period of time, right?
It's a profound. This is why I think eclipses, even today, that we know the science, right? We know what's going on, but it still stirs you, right? So I
It
can't
does.
imagine how ancient cultures were impacted.
And so, that's exactly right. And even as scientists, sometimes, we can go to the blackboard and draw, or whiteboard, whatever it is nowadays, right? And draw pictures and articulate the physics. But there's a disconnect still. There's a disconnect between, processing and understanding the science, the physics, and then there's the emotional impact that is registered upon witnessing. And maybe this is a great opportunity, because sometimes even we talk about it, it's still not, well, maybe now, because post April 8th, a lot of people had a chance to see it. But I wanted to show this clip.
Yeah,
And this is
sure.
back from 2017, and that NPR did. And I use this in all my classes and leading up to April 8th, because it was a great way to share that excitement. So let me share my screen now. Am I able to do that, Andrew?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So let me do that.
So we're just
Uh,
setting that up, folks. Just hold on.
yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
So as you can see, this is a 7-minute clip. I'm not going to play the whole thing, and maybe we'll put the links online for folks to see. I'm going to go to about the 3.5 minute. I'm going to go about halfway. Yeah, maybe that's a good place to start. So I'll start it there, and I'll let it run to the end.
The God that enjoys beauty.
We're observers here. This is nature's event. We are really witnessing like this incredible, majestic choreography of orbital mechanics. So I think it's a really important time to reflect on our place in the universe.
For me, having my friends up here all congregating in the middle of Idaho, this is all important to me because I was recently diagnosed with ALS, so I don't have much time before I'm too paralyzed, not able to do things like this. That's really important to me, and that
it doesn't feel like a big disappointment that it rained. It was so cleansing, actually. I mean, people ran up and said, "Do you want to use our glasses?" And so we got to see it through glasses too. Any other time, people might actually be a little more upset about missing something like the solar eclipse. But with what all we've been through, we're just feeling very joyous about experiencing this together.
That's an impressive sight. There it comes.
Look at the street lights coming on.
A little bit. Wow.
Stop it. You see them? The street lights are coming on. Oh, I can just see it. It's going. It's almost. It's over there. Oh, wow. Look at that. Wow. Wow. I never thought I'd see this. Oh, my goodness.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Oh, God, take a photo.
Damn.
Oh,
This is so crazy.
Wow. Look at how dark it is out here.
Oh, look at the skyline. It looks like nighttime.
It was amazing. Like, you stop.
When that diamond ring came out,
It kind of felt like love.
I heard little crickets come out chirping and all that because it got dark, and I don't know. And I felt the temperature drop.
Celestial things are just beyond comprehension. And when you see one and it's really there, and we're all here,
no matter who you were, what your beliefs were, what your morals were.
Joy
It sort of lets you see where we sit in the cosmos.
Because we all are experiencing life the same way. So,
what color, what political, anything. Everybody's like,
I think it's something we all really need right now. It's just to feel connected in a way.
There was such a camaraderie and friendliness, and we were literally touching and hugging each other.
I bet the whole world was looking up. I bet the whole world was looking up.
That's incredible,
isn't it? It
captured it exactly what it's all about. That, yeah.
I get goosebumps. I have goosebumps now again watching.
Me
that.
too.
Yeah. You know, that it's that visceral and emotional connection. That's not what you're prepared for. Responding to seeing totality, you know, the corona, this very thin, tenuous, multi-million degree gas that can only be seen during a total solar eclipse. And then, of course, we had these beautiful prominences you may have seen in some of the higher magnification images that photographers and astronomers took. That was also visible. So, you know, it's all of that, and that catches you off guard. And so that, to me, you know, as you said at the introduction that you know, for my PhD work, I did supermassive black holes, and it's very exciting. But as you know, as I've gotten older, it's the thing that has always brought me back, and is something that now that I'm very curious, is just, you know, how did our ancestors observe and interpret and understand it? Because so much of what they did informs us today. You know, a month literally comes from the word munth, because they were great observers, right? They decoded these patterns that the moon's phases would repeat every 29, 30 days to the eye. And that's where the word comes from. A year, very early astronomers, the Babylonians and the Sumerians, figured out the patterns of constellations that would rise at sunset or set at sunset, you know, would repeat every 365 days. The physics, again, of what was causing it was unknown, but these were patterns that they could decode. The 4 seasons that most mid-latitude inhabitants of Earth experience, right? This is the source of our calendars very early. And because the why, the scientific understanding would come much later, it was very tempting and obvious to resort to some deity, right? Some larger than us power that was responsible. So let me see if I can share this. This is one of the assets we created to kind of engage in that that storytelling and share. Yep. Can you see this, Andrew?
Yes.
Connected this with your audience. PDF. Yeah. This is a PDF that, again, we'll put in the link. It's free. It was just capturing 10 of these stories from our ancestors, spanning many different cultures and time periods, of what they thought of an eclipse, how they explained it. And of course, you know, it starts off with, these I love the illustrations, by the way, of course, but it's also a way to talk about, for a lot of people, these were scary times. And actually for some cultures, the Navajo in particular, this was a time where the total solar eclipse was the destruction of the sun by the moon. So it wasn't a celebratory moment. It was a very solemn moment. It was a very sacred moment. In fact, for many of the Navajo, they weren't outside observing, neither then nor on April 8th. They were inside praying, meditating, doing current, talking about their faith and their traditions, because this was the solar eclipse represented the destruction of the sun by the moon, and then a new cycle would begin. So these kinds of stories are a great way to capture just the majesty, yes, but then just how we as a species that is interpreted. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll just kind of spring through these to show you that we have indigenous storytelling. There's the Mapuche of Chile, and of course we have the scientific, the kind of the astronomy of today. One of my favorite, actually, and which I actually use all the time in my classes, is the story of Rahu and Ketu. This is the story of a mortal trying to find the elixir of immortality, the Amrita, that comes from the churning of the milk. And one of the Vishus finds out that he's about to do it, and gets the wrath of a god, and kills his head, slaughters his head. And so it's said in Hinduism that the Rahu is chasing the sun, chasing the moon, and every so often he catches up with the sun or the moon, and that's how they explain both lunar and solar eclipses. And so these kinds of stories, to me, are just fascinating. The other thing I'll just show, since I'm sharing this, and then I'll stop, is just, again, coming back to this idea that for many cultures, for many faith traditions, the moon plays a pivotal role. And so this was just a poster that starts with the annular, so that's why it starts with October and then goes to April, just highlighting the different phases. We were counting down from annular to totality, but then highlighting the different ways that even today, again, because of this kind of disconnect, we don't observe, we don't look up as often as our ancestors did, but it plays a pivotal role, the moon does, in many of our traditions. And this poster is a great way of highlighting that. I'll stop sharing it so I can see you. Find you again. There you are. But these are resources we created, and are free and accessible, and I'm happy to share them with AWB so you can communicate with your followers. But that's what I think about this totality. And I think it's really timely that you're having this discussion, to come back to this other point you raised, is that people see something like that, and it does move them. I think there's to use the words of science, there's a state transition, in the sense that until you've seen totality, a total solar eclipse, in fact, there's a tendency to diminish or to belittle and say, especially when you have friends or colleagues that say, well, I'm going to this part of the world to experience 4 minutes of darkness. And you go, what? That just makes no sense. Go to the beach, go do something else, whatever, right? And then the same person that criticizes that choice then observes it, and then it's like,
the aha moment, right?
Yeah.
Do you think, Shanil? Yeah. Shanil, do you think that here, at least in North America, because this was continent-wide, the path of totality crossed through very high urban, dense areas, unlike even the 2017 one. This is even more. Do you think that attitude's going to change? We're going to encounter more of this understanding of how impactful a celestial event can be? Do you think that awareness and appreciation, are we, like you and I, as being communicators and educators, outreach people, are we going to encounter, do you think, more understanding?
I would like to believe so. I would like to hope so. And I do think there is an opportunity here, because I think for a lot of people, that may have been the first time that they had looked up and connected with the natural world in that kind of way. And that does then light a candle, and it does stoke their natural curiosity. And now it's finding ways to kind of channel that excitement and enthusiasm and energy. I would love to hope, and I would love to hear from you in 6 months that our subscriber, our follower base, right, has doubled, quadrupled, because people are now activated and are interested. I do think there might be, I think actually not might, I think there is a probability that that would occur. Anecdotally, we heard that after 2017 from a lot of informal science centers, that there was a lot of people that, even though it went through a much narrower path of humanity than April 8th, that there was people asking, what next? What can we do? How can we get involved? And so I think there is an opportunity to do that. I think anytime we have science as the topic of conversation, and we can do this, and to ground it in that kind of human curiosity seeking, something that is innate to our species, it's not new, right? I think it invites people in our world, and invites people that maybe aren't quite where you and I or others may be, but want to engage in a conversation. That's all you can ask, right? That's all
Yeah.
you can ask for.
Well, and this is what I've kind of come to realize too, is like, I'm not as an outreach person, I'm not expecting to convert people, into becoming full-fledged amateur astronomers and getting into the hobby necessarily. But it's just making that little, even if it's just a small connection, right, of that appreciation. And it was really interesting, and I'm sure, Shanil, you've heard about this. Is there's been now psychological studies done that have shown that looking up at the sky at celestial events builds empathy in people.
Yeah.
And the video, that NPR video that you were showing me, really, I mean, and they addressed it briefly there, I think, too, where there were people, they're saying that, it lowers the barriers, the social barriers, these kind of events, where people, total strangers who may be so vastly different in their lifestyles or who they are, where they come from, their origin stories, all of that. But this one moment just breaks down those social barriers and allows them to come in together and enjoy this moment. It's incredible. I mean, as an amateur astronomer, I've been at like doing outreach, doing star parties, similar event, but at a very, very smaller version would be like looking at the rings of Saturn or something like that. Wow moment. It's a much smaller little, it's like an ember, compared to this big bonfire of an eclipse, that's the difference, but it's there. And I think amateur astronomers, this is what they live for, is getting that connection.
Absolutely.
You know?
No, but I think, first of all, it was beautifully said. And I agree, too often, especially, in our kind of modern day existence, where, we're driven to the next thing, to get the next thing or to finish the next thing. We don't have that opportunity to stop, pause, and reflect. And I think that's what the night sky invites you to do. Sometimes for some it can be daunting or intimidating, because the cosmos, the universe, seems so big and so vast, and we're so small, and maybe feeling like it's insignificant. But I think what these studies show is that for the most part, that isn't the reaction. It's the recognition that we're a part of this landscape. We're a part of this story. And, even more to the scientific nuts and bolts, our atoms came from previous generations of stars that lived and died and then exploded, and causing new generations of stars to form that was enriched in this material. And at least in one case, that enriched material caused planets to form and life to take hold on one of them. And that's our story, right? And so I think that's the thing, that when you look up and when you stare at the night sky, the reason why I think it's soothing and soul setting is that it's a way to let go of your ego, I think.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and
It's
to realize
humbling, very humbling.
Yes. But that there's also a connection. So, that's why I love that NPR video, because it starts off with this kind of just this, fantastic cosmic geometry that gives rise to eclipses. But then there's that emotional, visceral impact that you're not prepared for. And those people weren't as well. That does spawn and does trigger. So I'm hopeful, to come back to your question, that we do see a rise. I do think there's an opportunity, and that's what these efforts like AWB, right, is there to spawn. And part of this Eclipse Ambassador project was also to engage in that conversation. Now, moving forward, of course, the conditions for eclipses on average happen every 6 months. The moon may not be at, in these nodal points to give us a solar or lunar, but the conditions are. And of course, for a solar eclipse, the shadow is much smaller, so it impacts Earth on a very small geographical region, which is why you have to travel, versus a lunar eclipse where the entire night-facing side of the planet, right, can observe it. So there are these opportunities to kind of engage and to have these larger conversations internationally. I think the other reason why this got a lot of attention, of course, it was North America centric, right? It passed over Mexico, 15 states, and as you pointed out, 15 populous, high population density states, and then through New England, or through the Northeast, and then up to Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland, right? The 4 Canadian provinces. So it impacted a large population center, and we have a big megaphone, the North America does, and so it got a lot of attention. But these events happen around the world, and I just think there's an opportunity there to kind of light the fire and have these conversations in places. There's one that's going to pass over Africa, Northern Africa, right, and to have these more broader, widespread. And I just can't imagine what we're feeling and the conversations we're having here now. What if it was worldwide?
Exactly. Well, AWB is really this is part of our mission too, and we have our Eclipse recycling glasses campaign, and we've been staggered by the interest that the general public has. I mean, literally, there are thousands of collection sites everywhere around North America and both Canada and US, and people I think they understand that this amazing sky event needs to be shared. We want to share that. It's something in there. That's that empathetic feeling. It brings it out in people, like in droves. So literally, we're seeing millions of people wanting to donate their glasses to someplace else around the world who's going to be in the path of the eclipse and share that experience. So it's like sharing this experience through space and time. Really, it's incredible. And, here in North America, the next great American eclipse will be in 21 years. I think it's 2045 August, right? Where it'll go through Northern California to South Florida, the path again.
Right.
It just makes you think. It's humbling. I'm going, if you don't travel, if you're not an eclipse chaser, it's quite a long dry spell.
It is, and that was probably my story too. I think, so just to kind of backtrack, the reason why this both scientifically but also personally, my parents were refugees actually to Canada. I was born in on the West Coast in British Columbia in 73. My parents,
fellow Canuck. Hey,
yeah. Well, literally, because I am a Canucks fan, but yeah. And so when schools shuttered, and teachers weren't doing events and schools weren't hosting events, who does that impact, right? It's not the children of the wealthy and the middle class. Those parents, for the most part, are have college degrees and have an education and know that this is a once in a lifetime generally moment. Absolutely. And these kids, our kids, should observe and witness. What happens to the poor, and the mom that's working 2 jobs and can't take their child, right? Those are preferentially impacted. So that's why when I hear about schools shuttering or not having watch parties or not engaging, It's literally a bait and switch. That's the whole time. The whole thing we're talking about, right, is a bait and switch. There's the totality, but it's really this opportunity to engage in storytelling, science education, and what's going on. And it's an opportunity lost. And if nothing happens, if our subscriber base and followers don't grow, I do think we would certainly have inspired a new generation of scientists, engineers, the entrepreneurs, the people who bring tomorrow, right? Imagine tomorrow. They will have been inspired. And those fruits, we won't witness for 2 decades, 3 decades. But when our successors talk to them, they'll talk about April 8th and the moment that eclipse happened.
It's really interesting because, before this, here I'm in Montreal, and so the last total eclipse that went through this city here, my city, was 1932. I mean, that, there's people still around who do remember that, but it's becoming a faded old memory, and here we are.
Right.
Now it's reinvigorated. There's a whole new generation that now understands what a totality is really about, and it refreshes, and it's going to be like you said, stories that will be told for generations to come.
Yeah, and just because again of the population centers that this eclipse passed over, right? It's estimated something on the order of 100 million to 200 million.
Incredible.
People watched. Yeah, and of course, so actually the irony, of course, is I was with 5 of our eclipse ambassadors and a fellow staff member, Tony Smith from the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. We were actually in Junction, Texas. That was a site picked by the Exploratorium, our colleagues from the museum in San Francisco that provide a live stream. So we were at the site, and they picked the site years ahead of time, right? Because all the models, forecast models from historical data showed that that's the best place and higher probability of seeing totality. We were clouded out for 20 minutes.
I know the forecast was, you looked at the historical forecast where I am, this is the one thing I had to make. Am I going to go down to Texas? And I've been, this is what I was ready to do that. But I said, I don't know why, but I think I'm just going to stick around here. And I was looking at the forecast a week before. Already it was lining up that the Northeast, is going to counter everything that historical data said. And it was so strange, wasn't it? How it played out.
Yeah.
Just so
and
strange.
I'm glad that it did, right? They're in Toronto, the path of totality didn't go over Toronto. That's where I went to high school. And but the Niagara Peninsula was fine, right? And there's a lot of people that went there. And then I know that, American cities of Buffalo and Rochester have been planning for a long time. And a lot of people belittle them. Why are you doing that? Upstate New York in April, forget about it, right?
I know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, having said all that, I took my 13-year-old daughter with me on this trip, and she's the TikTok generation. So and she came with me, took her out of school, and I was kind of doing a little experiment to see, well, how would she respond? How would she react? Is it going to be too cool for her? And just again, what we've talked about and what we've seen, just to see her respond and react. And again, we missed the totality. We were clouded out just in that 20 minutes, but it got dark, and we had a thermometer, and the temperature dropped on the order of about 15 to 17 degrees Fahrenheit, and you felt it. And even though it was clouded at overhead on the horizon, it was still relatively clear. So you had that ethereal observation of sun 360 degrees around you, but dark everywhere else and cool. And so that experience, even if you're clouded, is incredible to see, because it's such a disconnect. It's 1:30 where we were. It's 1:30 in the afternoon, and it's dark and it's cold, and crickets are chirping and all this other nocturnal activities happening. So it was just a fantastic experience.
And it's a multi-sensory event, definitely. Hey, listen, we've got a couple of we've got folks out there watching us from all over the world, and we've got an interesting kind of observation and question here. Shall we entertain them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So we've got Norm, who is our national coordinator, AW's national coordinator in the Philippines. He's watching us in the Philippines, and he is saying, I'm curious if there's also a lot of people there who still have negative superstitions with total solar eclipses, despite how all these people gather to witness it. We still had to do a lot of fact checking from here in the Philippines, given prevailing superstitions and fake news posts? Very interesting.
Yeah, and so this, it's a very good question, and there are a lot of beliefs like that. Leading up to April 8th, in having these kind of inclusive discussions and cultural astronomy. One of the things that I heard from several different ethno groups is that pregnant women should not go out and observe total solar eclipse because of the kind of superstitions that various cultures had. Um, I I don't know if that having or trying to correct or however you want to phrase it to have that conversation is the most important to have, because I think it sets up a conflict, and I think we have too much of that already in our lives. I think having a conversation about an event and maybe talking about how to observe it safely, so that if there are concerns, those can be alleviated, but kind of sharing the fact that it's a shared experience, and maybe that's a pathway to getting to these larger conversations. And that's why I like this kind of ways of knowing, because too often, it's sometimes science comes across as it's our way or the highway, right? And that shuts off conversation. It shuts off discourse. Um, and uh, and as we've talked about, science sprung from that storytelling, from observing and trying to figure out these patterns. So I think there's ways of doing that. But ask for or the audience members specific questions about countering those kinds of superstitions. I think there certainly were concerns about maybe about the totality, but I think if people are open to the conversation, to the discussion of what's going on, that you can make headway.
Yeah. And, we're living in the digital age where there's just so much information, access to information, outlets for information, unlike ever before.
Right.
There's lots of opportunities. Yes, there's the bad side, but there's also the good side in that we do have that access. And there's, a lot of educators out there putting out amazing content that,
Right.
allows us to have access to people and maybe have some influence in exposing them to science.
Yeah, and certainly once you've seen it, you're not going to hold it.
Exactly. We've got another question here from Hatim from Morocco. He's saying, hello, what is the level of interest for tourism, I guess related to
Oh,
eclipse? Maybe
yeah.
that's something interesting. Yeah.
That's a fantastic question. So, in October, for the annular eclipse, and so just for folks, what's the difference between an annular and a total? So, of course, the moon's distance from the Earth, it's an elliptical orbit, which means kind of like a squashed soccer ball. And so the distance changes. Sometimes it's far away, sometimes it's nearby. And for October, the moon is much further away from the Earth, so that it didn't block the sun completely. And so you had this kind of ring, the circumference of the moon still kind of had the sun around it. That's the ring of fire eclipse.
Right.
And so in those kinds of eclipses, you never take off your glasses, of course, because the sun is a powerful star, and even that tiny sliver of sunlight is still sufficient to damage your eyes. So we were in Ely, Nevada, some 4 hours north of Las Vegas, for the annular, and again with the Exploratorium, who were doing the live stream, because again, historical data suggests that's where you want to be if you want to capture the video of that event. And so this is a small mountain community, and there were 8 star parties, 8 different observing sites that the city of Ely, Nevada had put together, because they knew they were expecting large numbers of people to come in to observe. And it was a financial boon, to a small community, all the money spent. That was a concern, of course, going into April 8th, though. So, we heard a lot about the positive. There are a lot of the negatives as well. Small towns getting inundated and overrun, run on gas, supplies, et cetera, like, the pandemic all over again, or a winter storm where people run out and buy milk and bread, all those kinds of concerns, none of which came to fruition, of course, but that's what some media outlets ran with. But it was still a big economic driver. The 2027 solar eclipse is going to go through Northern Africa and in Egypt. And, so I think already there, because, having just talked about the wonder and the awe of eclipses, how magical would it be to see totality from Egypt, the sands of Egypt, with all of their fantastic, stone monuments that the ancient Egyptians built to observe that. And so there's a huge demand for people that want to go to there. Of course, it's August and it's the desert. Temperature's 120 degrees Fahrenheit that time of year, so it's going to be very hospitable leading up to totality. But yes, Australia has something like 4 eclipses that are going to crisscross that continent over the next 15
Wow.
years. Right, so the kind of excitement that we had here in the United States with two total solar eclipses, 2017 and 2024, and then the annular in 2023, that kind of excitement. There's an opportunity to engage indigenous populations and local populations in Australia and do exactly what we talked about there. And those kinds of things is you talked about the dearth of events, right? In Montreal, you said was 1930s the last time such an event happened. But sometimes you get lucky and you get a couple in short order, right? And again, these are fantastic drivers to fan those flames of curiosity and imagination.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really an incredible time we live in, that we have the ability, we have the transportation systems that we have today, unlike previous generations, have the opportunity to travel to remote locations, do eclipse chasing like never before. It's open to everyone. Now I think the awareness is there. I've got one last comment I gotta put up. Carlos here says, this event made everyone feel a part of something bigger than them. The build up to the event was everywhere, I think is what he said, as stated, and there was so much momentum in this field and in STEM. So absolutely.
So Carlos is one of our superstar Eclipse ambassadors. So hello, Carlos. And engaged a lot of schools in his neighborhood, in his network, in his community. And so, he's speaking from firsthand experience. And that's exactly right. That's why, in some respects, the real fruits of this event aren't going to be felt for another 20 years. It's when this generation of elementary and middle school kids go to college and then move forward. I think it's going to be an interesting longitudinal study for psychologists out there who want to think about that. But these things these have huge legacies.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think this is, you touched on that. I think that's what I'm really excited to see moving forward, is the lasting effects of this. And hopefully they are. And I guess it's partly up to our organizations like AWB, ASP, folks like you and me, who keep being the evangelists for this, and the good it can do.
The good it can do, and then maybe it also impacts how we teach science. Rather than as a series of equations and facts you memorize and regurgitate, maybe there's an opportunity to teach science in this way that connects with, this kind of cultural past, where we talk about, where did this wonder and awe, how did it start, and how do we make progress? And I think when we ground it in that kind of natural curiosity, natural wonderment, and that this is actually a reflection of our species' interest in understanding who we are and where we are, I think we can teach science better too.
Yeah, absolutely. Right on.
Oh, hey, Kat, she's a colleague of mine, and it's a great point. That demystification is a great point. Too often, and Andrew, you probably heard this as well, that when you talk about maybe astronomy, or if you say physics, oftentimes when I was a grad student, I had the fortune to travel to some of the big observatories around the world. And, oftentimes the person next to me on the plane would ask, where I'm going and what I'm doing. And if I said, I'm an astronomer, then I got no work done because because you have this kind of conversation, right?
Yeah.
And it tells you that people are naturally curious and naturally wonder. However, if I said I'm a physicist, which is what astronomers are, right? It's like, oh my God, you must be a genius. I hated that subject. in high school, right? And so science sometimes, and physics in particular, gets stigmatized as some kind of social deviance, some Six Sigma deviation on a bell curve that you have to beat to do this. And I'm certainly not that. I actually struggled with calculus and physics in high school, but I knew what I wanted to learn, and I knew that it was very exciting to me to understand the colors and the morphologies and galaxies at the time, right? And so you persevere, but so many young kids do when they're starting soccer or baseball, right? You don't get off the couch and go and play a game. You practice and you learn from your mistakes. But sometimes, or for some reason, when it comes to math or science, if you don't get it, it doesn't run in our family, or you're not good at it. No, you got to practice just like you practice a layup, or you're hitting. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And
that demystification is a great point.
And demystify, and it's the accessibility. It's just that it's okay. It's okay to learn, and if you don't know something, it's fine. It's a learning opportunity, and
Absolutely.
We're all naturally curious as a species. We are. So yeah, it's it's so good. Shanil, thank you so much for joining us today.
I can't believe. Yeah, what a wonderful conversation. Thank you for facilitating and moderating it.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, you guys at the ESP are doing so much good stuff. We love working with you guys. We share the same philosophy, and it's so.
And we were happy to get the planets in alignment so that we have this eclipse during AWB's Global Astronomy Month. I can't promise we'll do that again next year, but
I know it just was meant to be, right? Written in the heavens. So. Hey, listen, Shanil, if people want to find out more about the program and yourself, of what you're up to and all the great things, where can they get more information?
So the Astronomical Society of the Pacific is a great place to start. And so astrosociety.org is our website. And of course, we're on all the social media channels. That's the best place to find the Astronomical Society: Facebook, Instagram, of course. And my name is Shanil V, and you can find me on Instagram and X as well, and on Facebook as well. And if you have other questions that we didn't get a chance to answer, or you have some other things you want to share, I'm happy to engage in that conversation with you on.
That's excellent. That is so cool. So we've put in the Astronomical Society of Pacific's website. It's astrosociety.org. People can find you all over the internet. Just type in your name, Shanil Virani. We've put your name in the comments so people can go and explore all the good things you're involved in as well. So cool, Shanil. I think we're going to have you back and talk at another time. We don't have to wait for the next eclipse for us to get together.
I hope not. Yeah. Absolutely, Anthony. It's been a delight. Thank you.
Absolutely. So great. So, Shanil, take care, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Hey, guys, isn't that fun? That was just such a blast to have Shanil on the show and give us an insight of what his great organization's been up to with the Eclipse. And of course, we've been busy with our recycling of our Eclipse glasses. It's ongoing. We've finished the collection center recruitments. That phase is done. We're in the vetting, sorting, and stacking, and all the shipping. All of that is to come with the glasses that will be that are collected across North America, are going out to different places around the world, to South America and Chile and Argentina, and the southernmost tip of South America will be experiencing an annular eclipse on October 2nd. And then on March 29th will be North Africa. And by the way, a little bit in northeastern U.S., North America, we'll see a beautiful partial eclipse just after sunrise. That'll be something really nice, end of March. So if you do have glasses, you may want to keep them, and you're in the northeastern part of North America, you may be in store for a beautiful visual sight if you've already been excited with eclipses from April 8th. So stay tuned. And if you want to support AWB and all the good stuff that we do, like shows like this, and of course our Eclipse recycling campaign, we'd love to have your support. You can log on to astronomerswithoutborders.org. You can make a donation. Even a small donation goes a long way, helps us do things like shipping these eclipse glasses all over the world, because there will be millions that we'll be doing, and we'd love to have your support. So even if you can't donate glasses, that's fine. If you could just donate $1 or $2, that would make a big difference too, and help us get those eclipse glasses into people's hands so they can safely see the eclipse in places where they may not have the opportunities that we've had here in North America. Let's share our good fortune with folks around the world. That's what AWB is about. One people, one sky, right, folks? So thanks for tuning in. We'll have more shows. It's not over yet. Global Astronomy Month is still going on. We're going to have some more cool stuff in store for you. Already this Friday, we have our Global Star Party. So stay tuned for announcements related to that, where we're going to have people from all over the world joining us, sharing their eclipse stories, sharing their astronomical events, public outreach that they're doing literally all over the world. It's going to be a fun party. Come and join us. We'd love to have you part of the fun. And that's going to be this Friday, April 26th, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, a 3-hour event. People will be coming and going. You can bring your hot chocolate, bring some hors d'oeuvres, whatever, and sit down and have fun with us. That's what it's going to be all about. So do join us on April 26th, and we will have more programming even than that. So watch for that on our Facebook channel, on YouTube, on Twitter. We're all over on Instagram as well for all those announcements. And of course, you can log on to our website, astronomerswithoutborders.org, and join our community. Thanks so much for taking a few moments of your day out of your day and joining us. We hope you stay safe and healthy. And until the next time, I wish all of you clear skies. Bye-bye.
From the pale blue dot to the distant stars, we are one. One people, one sky.